Always, always. Thank you. We're recording. Okay, so I'm curious to hear how long it took you, if I was accurate in the 60 to 90 minutes, and I guess more importantly, what were any findings that came out of your exercise yesterday, and how are you feeling as a result of doing that exercise, or how did it feel when you were going through it? Anybody brave enough to jump in?
Depressing.
Depressing? Okay, so yeah, we won't, so what I want to let you know about, and we kind of talked about this yesterday, I was working with a client yesterday, we were doing cash flows for their business, and we went through all of the expenses, so very similar exercise to what you did yesterday, but we did it for them and their business, and she was a little overwhelmed by how many expenses she actually had. When she started this business, she thought roughly her annual expenses were going to be about $150,000, $175,000. She'd actually purchased the business from somebody else. And when we went through all of the true expenses, she was sitting at closer to $280,000. So she got a little depressed and she got a little anxious about, what is this going to look like? How are we going to fix this? So all we did is then we went into, her cash flow projections and revenue streams and what we needed to generate. When we looked at how much she needed to generate, it was $1 million. And what's going to happen for you is when we actually see how much you need to generate, I suspect for the majority of you, you need to be earning more than what you're currently earning. That's my guess. I'm going to throw that out there right now, but I suspect 99% of you, you're going to be like, okay, I need to turn this up. A lot of you, when you see that number, you're going to, your immediate response, I suspect, is going to be fear-based, where it's going to be like, how are we going to do this, right? Or it might even be resignation, where it's like, there's no way. I don't want you to go there. I want you, if at the very least you can't get excited about, here's what we're going to create, I need you to just promise me that you're just going to park that feeling and to say, I'm not going to feel anything about this right now, because I know in week 2, we're going to figure out how to get there. Because it's just your beliefs that are keeping you where you're stuck now. So thank you for bringing that up, Nola, because it's a little overwhelming, especially I find when people go through calculating their debt and how in debt they are and their interest rates, they usually like, oh, this feels like an ominous task. How are we going to do it? So if you can all just promise me to just bench that feeling for the time being, to say, okay, I'm not even going to feel anything about that right now. I'm going to allow myself to feel after, but not until after week 2. And then my thoughts might totally change on that perspective. So thank you. Anybody else want to talk about any feelings that came up, or any challenges or insights that came up as a result of doing yesterday's exercise? You can always send me a chat too. No one, hey? Got a quiet group this morning. All right. Okay. Everybody just wants to move into exercise number 2 then, I guess. Oh, was somebody venturing a comment? I see a chat. Okay. Took me a couple of hours. I was trying to keep my business expenses totally separate for this exercise. Thank you for that. However, when it came to income, I didn't notice at first that I put in my gross income. All right. So, and sorry, I'm trying to, I think this is your last, I think this is Melanie. Sorry, I see Mel K. So yeah, Melanie. And she sent this to everyone. So I'm not saying anything that she wanted to keep secret. So I think there's a really important lesson in this. So thanks for sharing this, Melanie. A lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of you are bookkeepers, so you're going to see this, the majority of entrepreneurs are mixing up their business expenses with their personal expenses, right? They're using their debit card to pay for business expenses and then losing receipts and not getting themselves reimbursed for some of those expenses. So you're absolutely right, Melanie. To try to separate these expenses in the first place is a very, very important point here, because what we need to take care of is you first, and then once we understand those numbers, then we can take care of business numbers. And then income, yeah, don't worry. We're actually going to be putting in gross and then net. And so we'll go through that. So thanks for sharing. I appreciate the courage there to put that through. All right. As I go through, if anybody else has anything else that they want to share, I'd love to hear what you have to say. So feel free to chat, or feel free to just get engaged. All right. So today's exercise, now that you have all of the data, you're actually going to input it into Excel. So to do that, you are going to, and don't mind this little red scribble. Apparently I was using my whiteboard on Zoom this morning, so I don't know what's happening there, but you're going to go to the Epiphany website and you're going to click on members, and then under members, you're going to click on the equipment room. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to kind of test drive and maneuver through the website, but here in the equipment room is where you're going to download all you're going to find your tools, and you can find all the bonus rounds. The bonus rounds I talk about as we go through the exercises, but they're all there for you to peek at and take a look at. But today specifically, we're using the monthly budget worksheet, and you just click on download the worksheet and open it up in Excel, and then this is what you will find. This is your monthly budget worksheet, and we're actually looking at tab 1, which is called the budget. So that's what you're going to be using today. Now we're actually going to be focused on just our current columns here, and specifically column F. This is where you're going to be inputting the numbers that you've collected in the Word document and all of your data, and we're going to be line by line putting these numbers in here. So with your salaries, you do salary 1 in terms of your gross. And if you have a partner that is also earning a salary, again, put the gross in here. You can put the nets in here if you like, but I'll tell you right now what this is going to be calculating is it's calculating the gross. When we look at total earnings, it's calculating the gross, because you will notice that as we go through this budget, we have lines here for all of the expenses that are coming off the deductions. The EI, the pension, the RRSPs, we've got CPP here, and then we have taxes. So you'll notice on page 11 of your manual, it gives you an example of looking at a pay stub for those of you who actually have them, and it will kind of break down where you're going to be putting these numbers, but it's pretty self-explanatory. If you need to change anything, feel free to modify. You can certainly do that if none of these are resonating. This is a pretty extensive list, so hopefully, I believe you should be able to find a line item for every income and for every expense. So your salary incomes, or your dividends, they go in here. And then there's another opportunity here for any other income that you might generate. For example, rental income, spousal child support, government benefits, vehicle allowance. Some of you have cell phone allowances. So anything else that comes in, you can put that here. Fixed expenses, just straight down. Right, so I think this is pretty self-explanatory. We get into all the variable expenses. Again, pretty exhaustive list. When I'm doing this with clients, there might be 1 or 2 expenses that we haven't accounted for, where we just convert a line item and put that new title in there. And then our highly variable expenses, these include things like gyms, clubs and unions, or memberships, clothing, any sort of allowance that the kids get, or that you get, pet expenses, if you've got any sort of family parties or gifts that you budget for, vacations, interests and hobbies, charities and donations. I'm going to tell you here, with the exception of some of your monthly credit card expenditures, these are pretty variable, right? You might not even know what you're spending right now. If you're not sure, and if we didn't kind of lock that in yesterday, just put your rough idea in there. What's going to happen, obviously, like every budget, your total income is going to be the total of your gross salaries plus all of your other income. And then we go through all of your total expenses. Total expenses goes in here, in row 77. Sorry, your variable, and then total expenses here on 79. And basically your net balance is just taking all of your income minus all of your expenses. And I suspect for many of you, if you've put in all of your true costs, you're probably at a deficit position. Maybe, maybe not. Some people are just breaking even. Most are in a deficit position. one other little tip before I forget here. Under debt repayment, this is the number. We're going to be spending a lot of time on debt repayment on day 4, I believe it is. So here in this number, I just want you to put what you believe your average monthly debt payment is. So by the time you pay down your credit cards and your line of credit and whatever other debt you're paying, when you add up all of those minimum payments, if that's what you're paying, or if you have set fees for those things that are outside of vehicle and outside of mortgage, just add them up and put them here. Does that make sense for everybody? So there are line items for obviously for any sort of rent and mortgage, so you're not putting debt in there, and there's line items for vehicle payments here. So the debt repayment does not include mortgages, and it does not include vehicles, but it is everything else, like your line of credits, any other sort of term loans. Now, if it is a business loan, I want you to keep it as business, right? I'm going to show you where we're going to carry that over in your net worth, because if your loan has a promissory note attached to it, we've got to make sure that we're calculating for that personally. But if it's a debt that has been signed to the business, then we're going to keep it as a business debt. If it's a loan that was assigned to you personally, we're putting it in here. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Okay. Now, the other little thing that you may wish to take a look at, I've got to hide our little faces here so I can show you. You'll notice that there's kind of a code on the side here between E is for earning, SN is for spending needs, SH is for sharing, I is for investing, SN is for spending on needs, SD is for spending on debt, and SW is for spending on wants. So basically our 5 pillars, again, of earning, saving, sharing, spending, investing, those lines then will actually start to, sorry, as I move you around and get you really dizzy, move this over here. What will start to happen here is that it's going to take all of your numbers and it's going to add them up into these columns and then convert it as a percentage. So for example, if our savings is going to take that number, it's going to divide it by your total earning, and savings might show that you're maybe not saving anything or you're saving 1%. So on average right now in Canada, Canadians are saving less than 3% of their earnings. In 1980, we saved 20%. So this little table over here is going to tell you right away, it's going to be kind of an interesting barometer for you to see as a percentage of your income, where are you spending, or where are you allocating your money between saving, spending on needs, spending on wants, spending on debt, investing, and sharing. Now, sharing in this case, when I present on sharing, it also includes taxes. Because I believe if we were a little bit more aware of and cognizant of the understanding that we're sharing our money for the intention of social and economic impact, we might be a little bit more engaged with where our money is going and where it's being used and how it's being used, and hopefully start getting more invested in voting for people that we think are going to make the difference that we're looking to see. So in this case, sharing does account for taxes. We can always modify that if you want to change that going forward, but it's a good baseline. Okay, I think that, well, I know that takes us through the drill for the day. So today, again, just to recap, your assignment is to plug in all of the numbers that you collected yesterday and just put them in here under current. Just a couple reminders. I don't want you to get panicked about the deficit position you see at the bottom, because by the end of the week, we will have a plan A, and we might even have a plan B in terms of what does your financial snapshot need to look like so that you're properly taking care of investing, sharing, saving, spending, right? So this is just the first place, because the only way we can figure out where we want to go is by knowing exactly where it is that we're starting. So that's our goal today. Do not get panicked by the number. Dana brought up a really good point today, or just a reminder. On page 22, as you're going through these exercises, I suspect that you're going to have little things that come up that go, oh, you know, I really should be taking care of this. Maybe it's about canceling a payment that's been reoccurring on a credit card that you forgot about. Maybe it's about calling your bank to set up a new bank fee schedule. These are some of the things we're going to talk about in Plan A, because usually I see a lot of people spending a lot of extra money, typically in life insurance, on cell phones, on credit card interest rates. So there's going to be little activities that come up that go, okay, I should really, call to renegotiate that credit card interest rate. I need to get myself on a different banking plan. Spending $45 a month is not worth it, right? We should be down to 20. So as those things come up, you can use page 22 of your manual to start recording those actions. So everything's in one spot. You can get yourself organized, and then you've got a follow-up plan for when our challenge is done of all the little baby steps that you need to take to start tightening everything up. All right, that is it for me. I'm going to turn it over to you for any questions that you may have or comments. Oh, good. We've got some chatters. I love chatters. All right. Oh, the action page is 23. Sorry, I'm using an old one, so thank you. I apologize. A question. I know I will probably have to replace my furnace for $5,000 this month. Should I try accounting for that, increase maintenance, or does something like that come out of savings? Okay. So we got a couple options there. So let me step back on that. So the question is, when you've got big maintenance bills coming up, where should that come out of? So what we're planning here for is we're planning for a consistent budget that you can bank on a regular basis. So step one with this is that, and I think this is a really good example, Melanie, so thank you for this. If you look back over the years, I want you to start thinking about, what did I or what do I need to invest in on maintenance for the house? Should we be investing approximately, or should we be setting aside approximately $5,000 every year so that we know that if something comes up, we've got money set aside for it? So in this case, what I would do is I would suggest, working with you as a client one-on-one, I would take this $5,000. If we decided that that was the total spend, and it might be more, but then I'd divide it by 12. So I would say, okay, on average, let's budget $425 a month for maintenance. And one of the things that you're going to see when we get into our plan, Plan A, is that we're going to be setting up amortization accounts for you. And amortization is just basically saying, for these expenses that we know are not going to be taken out every month, for example, maintenance, but that we're setting those funds aside for when they're needed, we're going to be setting up a separate savings account in our bank. They call it savings. We're going to change the name of it to amortization. And we're going to be moving that money aside every month so that we won't have any surprises and we don't need to tap into these accounts. So Melanie, to answer your question here, your second part of the question, so accounting for it, I would try to do it on a monthly basis. Now that you know that you have to do it this month, I prefer that we do not, and this is just my opinion, it's basically how it's going to make you feel. Savings, one of the things that I'm hoping to get entrenched in everybody's minds, savings is for emergency. So if you're feeling like this is an emergency, Melanie, then I would go into savings for sure. I would take that out, but then I would plan to get that savings refilled within the next 5 to 6 months, right? So that you're constantly keeping that topped up. So hopefully that makes sense for you. So we'll budget going forward for maintenance, but for this expenditure, this is something where this is a need, right? This is a furnace. This is about heat and shelter. So you could tap into your savings to pay for the furnace, but just make sure that you're filling that savings account back up. So hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Okay. So I think that works for anybody. Any other questions?
No.
Everybody feeling good?
Mm-hmm.
Any comments? So again, like always, if anything comes up for you as you're doing this exercise, feel free to text me. I actually had 2 clients move their sessions today, so I have lots of time today if you need me. I'm happy to jump on the phone. You can text me at 306-713-8321 if anything comes up. and fire me off an email if you need to do that as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing what your results are and how you're feeling about this tomorrow. But good work, everybody. The heavy lifting was yesterday. This one should take you no more than 60 minutes, probably 30 to 60 minutes at most. And yeah, this one's relatively easy and less of an intensity level because all the real stuff was yesterday in terms of pulling it all together. Okay, 22 minutes. I think we're doing well. Let me just double check to make sure there's no more chats. Any final comments from anyone? Nope. Okay, love the worksheet. Thanks, Cindy. Awesome. Okay, all good. All right, well, I am here if you need me. I'll be sending you lots of positive vibes, making sure you get through this, and text me if you need me. Looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.